Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another arcade game repair video for you this afternoon. This is the fantastic Asteroids Deluxe. We got this in, and the thing was in fairly rough shape. It actually had a structural issue. Let me see if you can even see it. Yeah. It actually had a structural issue where the bottom was falling out and this board was missing on the back. So we replaced the board, got the bottom nice and secure with some glue and things to where we could actually move it out of storage. We brought it into the shop and now we're going to work through it. If you look close on the bottom, there is silt all over the power supply, and there are parts missing off of the power supply, like for instance the big blue. So that will be first, but that would be the first thing we worked on anyway. There's no game board in it, but we have tracked one down. The monitor's still in it, but needs rebuilt. So we're going to work through it a little bit, and we figured we would film a video while we did so. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that power supply out, the power brick at least. The power supply is right there. That's the power supply. That is the power brick. So I'm going to pull out the power brick first. Whenever you're working on these, the way you do them is you start from the wall. So like the AC's coming in and goes into the power brick, so that's the first thing we're going to look at. So we're going to pull that out and get it all cleaned up and see what we got. Alright, so we pulled the power brick out and the cord. So this is literally where it starts at the wall. So it comes in here. So you got to check your cord, make sure there's no rough spots on it. And once it gets in the cabinet, it plugs in through here on the side. I don't know if you can see that in the picture. I think you can. Yeah, in the side here. So we're literally starting at the very beginning. So all this dirt on it looks suspiciously like silt, which would be from a flood. So it looks like it might have been flooded at some point. So might end up with some problems. This is what's in the very bottom of the cabinet. So if it did, the cabinet's not, I mean the bottom was off of the cabinet. Whenever we got it, it was hanging. But the cabinet's not rough enough that it looks like it was sitting in water for a terrible amount of time, because if it was, it would have completely collapsed. Now you might say, well, the bottom came off, that's collapsing, but it's not, like all of the OSB hasn't completely deteriorated. So if I was going to guess, I would say that yes, it's been in a flood, which is what this is from, but it was probably short-lived, so they might have left it outside or something. But I mean, this is like dirt that was in water, so it was probably a freaking flood. Right? So your main issue would be if this transformer's bad. So the transformer, all it is a bunch of wires wrapped around a core inside, and all of the wires are coated. So since they have a coating on them, even if they get flooded, it's probably not going to ruin it. But of course we're going to test it and everything. It doesn't look like it's damaged. I mean, it looks fine. So we'll see. Now here's this little cardboard thing is still in place over the fuses, and again, that's still, you know, fine. Now this thing has been in our storage building for at least a year and a half. So if it was wet at some point, it's completely dry by now because it's been sitting in our dry storage building for a year and a half. This ring holds the big blue capacitor in place, which is this. Well, somebody had already removed it. I guess the operator or whoever owned it before us. And this ring, the screws and everything were gone. It's just laying in the bottom of the cabinet. So somebody had already started stealing parts off of the game. Also, the game board's missing out of it. So we're going to replace that. And you can see all the silt over the glass fuses. Those should be clear. So we'll have to clean that up as good as possible. And then let's look under it. So under it is kind of a different story. It all looks pretty good. So, I don't know what to think about that. If it was a flood, you would have thought that there'd be stuff. Well, I don't know. I mean, that could all just be where it's, you know, settled on it like dust, but man, that's a damn lot of it, and it's all brown like dirt, so it looks like it's been flooded to me, but all this looks good. So basically, again, the AC comes in here, Can you see that good? I think you can. So the AC comes in here, and it goes through this line filter, which basically just smooths it a little bit. And then it comes to here, this little connector here, right? So you can see the blue wire runs straight to the connector. That's the neutral. The brown wire runs through this fuse here. So it's the line's fused, that's your main fuse, and then runs into the connector. So the blue and the brown wires end up at the connector. Well, there's nothing on the connector, but it's in the cabinet, obviously. So what connects here is two wires go out and run up to the switches on the cabinet. So the on-off switch, and then the safety switch on the back door, and I think that on some of them at least there's a safety switch on the coin door. After they run through all those switches, which is various ways to turn off that hot wire, right, it comes back down into this connector again. So line comes in, goes through the fuse, goes out the connector through all the switches where you can turn it off, and then back into the connector. So once it is all turned on, you've got your power running back down through this white and black wire. Now the green wire here is your ground. So back through this white and black wire. So once it's gone through the switches and through the fuse, you've now got power on this white and black wire, which runs over to here. So this is just a junction block. So they split it two ways. So one pair of wires goes to here, which is the connector here for your marquee light. And then the other pair of wires, these bottom ones, are now black and white with a black wire, so you can differentiate them. Run over to the transformer. Come in this side of the transformer. So transformers, what they do is they turn AC voltage into other AC voltages. So your power comes in here and then comes out here. So these are all different voltages, not really sure what voltage they are. All of this looks pretty good. That's got a little wear on it, I guess probably where it was just sitting on the bottom of the cabinet. Remember, these 4 screws would hold it in, so it's flat on the bottom of the cabinet. So these are various voltages coming out of the transformer, and they run over to this big plug over here on the side. Now, on the top, again, this is the power to the transformer. On the top you have these connections. So these are coming out of here. Some are going underneath. Some are coming over to these fuses. So they're fused. Notice the top fuse doesn't even have any connections. So basically, once the power comes out of the transformer into the fuses, those lines are fused, and then they come out of this side and back underneath, where they all plug into that plug again. Now some of them are these orange wires and the purple wires, which attach to the big capacitor, which is another way of smoothing the voltage. That's after it runs through this bridge rectifier. So you've got let's see here, some of them are AC voltages, and then we've got orange, white, and purple and white. Alright, so see, the purple and white is running to the ground, and the orange is running over here to the bridge rectifier. Now what a bridge rectifier does is it turns AC voltage into DC voltage. So once it goes through the rectifier, it comes out as DC voltage. So you got the ground and your positive voltage. I believe that voltage is like 10.6, something like that. And it's basically what runs all the 5 volts that it's turned into on the power supply. So this whole power brick is just to distribute AC voltages and to rectify that 1 voltage that starts making the 5 volts on the power supply. I think the power supply has like there's another set of high voltages like plus 25 and minus 25, or plus 33 and minus 33, or something like that. But that's what we're starting with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all this stuff, and I'm going to mount my new big blue in it, which is now a big black, and get the wires hooked back up to where basically all of this is doing its thing, and then we'll check continuity on the fuses and stuff. So I'll clean it up a little bit and we'll see what we end up with. Alright, so that's where we are so far. I cleaned up all of this, Tested the fuses, they're actually fine. Whenever you do these, make sure you're putting the right values in. Like this is 4 amp, 4 amp, 4 amp, and that's 20 amp. You don't want to put, if you overfuse them, it can cause all kinds of problems like stuff burning up. You can actually cause a fire inside the arcade game, and then you got a big wood box on fire. Bad idea, folks. Don't do it. So check those to make sure they're the right value. And just cleaned it up. I didn't do a bunch of extensive cleaning. I just cleaned off all the dirt that I could get to. It took about 15-20 minutes cleaning it up. Now, I've seen people that do these really nice. They'll even like take everything off and then have the metal re-anodized to where it's like perfect. I don't mean painted. I mean re-anodized. You know, it'll look brand new. But it's all nice and clean. This is actually in really good shape. Usually they don't look this good. I think the silt actually protected it all. The connectors, none of them were burnt, and they're making good continuity over the fuse. So basically, whenever you check it, you want to use your multimeter like such on continuity, and you want to try to check from metal to metal. You know, so you don't want to check the fuse. You want to check through the connector, so that the connector is connected together. See? This one says 0.2, 0.3. This thing's off a little bit. It's not completely calibrated. So, but now I'm going to do the big black, and we'll see how it looks after that. All right. So this is what we finished up with. New big blue fuse cover back on. Everything clean. Everything looks good. On the big blues, the purple wires all go to the ground, and the orange wires all go to the positive. So we looked that up to make sure in the manual, and it actually cleaned up pretty good. There's still a little bit of here and there, but looks pretty good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put it in the machine, hook the harness back up to it, and then without anything else hooked up, so without the monitor hooked up, without the power supply board hooked up, blah 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 blah, we're going to try to check the voltages coming out of here. Like I said, this connector is the switches, this connector is the marquee light, and this connector is all of the voltages that run the monitor and the power supply. So we'll try that and be back in a second. All right, folks, so we pulled out the AR audio regulator board. It was in there like that with all of the dirt and the silt. So we're going to clean all that up. We're going to test the transistor to see if it's shorted. That's what makes the 5 volts. Whenever these transistors go bad, sometimes it turns 12 volts into 5 volts. Sometimes it goes bad in such a way that it shorts and sends the 12 volt on the line that the 5 volt should be on, which is bad. Okay. And we're going to replace some of these capacitors. And we're going to check this transistor to see if it's good. And we're going to check these resistors to see if they burn up. They look like they're fine. So we're going to basically clean some stuff up. Okay, folks, so we worked on the power supply a little bit. We resoldered the connectors because those get, when you wiggle them, they get bad solder joint. All the transistors seem fine. The resistors seem fine. And I wanted to show you these caps. The original ones are axial caps, where the pins come out the ends, which is the proper way to do it. But we don't have any axial caps, so I had to use radial caps. If I had time to wait for the caps to come in, I could do that. But I'm in the middle of filming a video. I mean, I can't wait around all day, all week for axial caps to come in. So I put radial ones on here. The reason that you don't really want to use radial if you can help it is because they come out the end like that, which is fine for most things, but on a board like this it has exposed traces. So like these two are fine because the metal doesn't touch anything, but like this one, for instance, the metal, see how it goes over another trace? So in a bad situation, somebody might press down on that and make it where it shorts to the trace, which wouldn't be good. This one hops 2 traces, this one hops 2 traces, and this one's fine. So 3 of them, radial doesn't really matter, but these 3 should really be axial ones. But I don't have any, so we're just going to have to live with it, folks. And it cleaned up pretty good. Again, it's not perfect. We're not trying to make it look brand new. We're just trying to make it look better than it did. These 2 here are the sound amps. And so if you don't have sound, sometimes you have to replace these. Let's see, on these it is a TDA 2002, which I believe you can replace with a TDA 2003, but you can't replace with a TDA 2020 or a TDA 2030. but you'll have to look all that up to make sure I'm right. But if the sound's fine, we don't have to worry about it. If the sound's not working right, it could very well be these two. But there's really no good way to test them without just plugging it in and checking it out. So that's that. Now if you get an Asteroids, they look almost identical to this. The only difference is instead of this square plug here for the sound, it has a 1x4 one that goes in right here. Why they made that different, I have no clue. But on the Asteroids one, there's a plug right here, which does the same thing. And on the Asteroids Deluxe, there's a square plug, which does the same thing. There may be something else different, but I'm not aware of it. So I'm going to plug this in, or I'm going to go mount this in the cabinet, and then we're going to test all the voltages on the power brick like we talked about and on this board. All right, folks, so we have mounted it back in, and as I was talking about, I don't have the power supply connected, but I do have the power brick connected. And we got our, remember we made that new bottom board? So over here we mounted the power switch, and over here we ran the cord through. And like we were talking about, we're going to check the voltages coming out of this plug, which feed everything else. So I made a little list off of the manual. So let me put this somewhere where you can see it. Look at that. What a great picture. All right, so pins 1, 2, and 3 are the 10.6 volt DC, which is unregulated, by the way, so it might be a lot higher than that. And 4 and 5 are ground. So we're going to let me see if I can put this somewhere better. What can we do? What can we do? All right, so using pin 4 as ground on pin 1, we get 15.3, so it is high as hell. Like I said, it's unregulated and there's no load on it, so the board's not plugged in. 15.3, 15.3, which makes sense because they're all coming from the same spot. So our 10.6 is there, it's just high, so we'll watch that. And then pins 6 and 7 are 36 volt AC center tap. The center tap is connected to the ground, so you put your ground on that. Oh, it's AC. So pin 6, we're getting 19.23, so if we measure between 6 and 7, I guess, we get our 36, so it's 38.4, a little high, but like I said, it's not regulated, so that's fine. Okay, pins 8 and 9 is 6.1 volt AC. And again, the power is on, so I'm trying not to touch the transformer, which might be an enlightening experience. You can also do this by tracking down where the wires go on the other end. So instead of 6.1, we're at 9.5. Again, unregulated. So pins 10 and 12 are 60 volt center tap. 369. So 10. And 12. We've got 65. If I can get us all situated here. We've got 65 between 10 and 12, and then we want to do between 13 and 15, which is also 60 volt. Okay, and we've got 65 again. So all of those are high, but it's because nothing's hooked to it, so nothing's pulling power from it. So we're just checking to make sure all the voltages are there. Nothing's crazy out of line. That 10.6 is a little crazy at 15, but nothing's ridiculous. So we'll plug it, the power supply in, and then check the voltages coming out of it. All right, folks. So we are checking the power supply, and we've got 5.17 on it. Whoop, my ground just dropped out. But we've got 5.17 on it, which is good, so we can hook up the board now. All right, folks, so I found a board that we had in our stash. We've got a stash of all kinds of boards. I found an Asteroids Deluxe board, and I had it labeled reset loop. It's resetting. So, put it in the game, check the voltage, made sure there was a good 5 volts on it, and whenever you turn the game on, it starts beeping. So it's 4 high ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 low one. Over and over and over again, right? So, we'll turn this off. Let's go look at our trusty online manual. And in the manual, it says sequence of beeps.
Okay.
Sequence of beeps. So we're getting 4 highs and 1 low. So N3. Possible bad RAM chip location N3. So guess what we're going to do next? We're going to replace N3.
That's all for today. Make sure to join us next week when all questions will be answered. Do we repair the board? Do we do anything with the monitor? Make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our videos, and leave your comments below. No comments about the goofy voice, please.